It's the 9th of November, maybe a different date when you see this video. Well, this is the commemoration, the anniversary of Kristallnacht, the beginning of the attack on Jews in World War II. So poignant, powerful to be commemorating that along with commemorating this. It's also the 5-year anniversary this week of the borderline shooting in this community. So for us in the Conejo Valley, this is a lot to be bearing at one time. And I'm sure there are many more commemorations. We're coming, I believe, now or in a week or so to the Tree of Life shooting commemoration anniversary as well. So we're carrying a lot. The comparisons to the Holocaust with what just happened in southern Israel are apt and not necessary or not necessarily helpful, because one is on such a great, giant, enormous, and devastating scale, and one is devastating but clearly not a Holocaust. We shouldn't demean or diminish the meaning of that word by making it a comparison to an event that presumably needs a new word to define it or to hold on to all that happened. One of the comparisons that might be helpful is to think about the atrocity of both occurrences 80 years ago, 85 years ago, and now, and also the brutality and the ruthless disregard for human life and the racism and the prejudice and the bigotry and the collusion and the indifference and all of the other things that happen in societies that allow that to happen. One of the things that was different about this attack, that in that unnecessary or confusing comparison with the Holocaust, is that when the Nazis committed atrocities, as one commentator said recently, they drunk themselves to sleep at night to release all the horrors that they'd committed from their minds so they could get a night's sleep. They clearly had deep, deep shame for what they did, or some did at least. But what we saw in the atrocities that came out on video from Hamas's attacks on Israel was that not only did they not want to rid themselves of those memories of what they'd done, they shared them. They called family members and said, here's what I just did today. Tell mom to get on the phone. Let me share this news with her. Tell dad. They passed photos and images around, and that's how the world media got a hold of those. So there was a pride in what was achieved, which is despicable on top of despicable. What do we do? What do we do with all this information that's so powerful and painful and really too large to hold in our hearts? Well, maybe one of the things we have to do is open our hearts and join them with the people who are suffering, which means to commiserate, share in the misery, have the humanity to say, in this moment in time, I need to feel this pain, not turn away from it. I need to feel the pain of the families who are waiting for loved ones, praying that they'll be released, who are being held hostage for now more than 30 days. Imagine 1 hour of those 30 days, and then multiply it out. Insecurity, vulnerability, who knows what else. Inhumanity, not having a sense of time, not knowing what's happening in the world above them and around them. The second thing we might want to think about doing is supporting Israel because it's defending our values, not only its own. It's defending our lives, not only its own. It's defending our people, not only its own. Not only Jewish people in Israel, but Jewish people around the world, but also people around the world who are going to suffer if this illness, this malignancy in our society continues to grow and gain strength because of evil actors in the Middle East and around the world who are willing to fund it and prop it up and arm it. So one thing is to realize that Israel has an obligation, as any government does. Every government is like a parent in a sense. We elect parents in democracies and we say to them, your first and foremost responsibility is always to do one thing, and the rest comes after it. That is to protect us. So with that in mind, we might understand what Israel is doing in Gaza and, when necessary, in Syria, eliminating Iranian weapons there, and when necessary, in Lebanon, striking weapons factories and weapons holds and even fighters there. They're doing the parental thing, the protective thing, which is taking care of the children being born in their society, the elderly living in their society, and everyone in between. So the difficult thing is extending this knowledge, this wisdom, I'd say, this understanding of life in the world today where there's good and evil, and extending it beyond a minute or an hour or a conversation or a day and knowing that we have to hold on to our resilience and our willingness to say evil was evil yesterday and it's still evil today and will be tomorrow. And what we have to do is stay with the people, in this case the IDF and its allies, our own American allies and allies around the world, who recognize and are willing to state that this must not go on. That Hamas has to not be hurt but eliminated. So as I said before, this malignancy doesn't continue to cause death and destruction to the body politic of a people. Ultimately, what we might hope is that peace will come. I don't believe that peace will come because of a ceasefire. I think that's ceasing to combat the illness. Instead, I think the necessity and the hope and the wish and the prayer is that ultimately true peace will come. And that will come when we are ready to realize either that we can defend ourselves or there's nothing to be defended against, or ultimately the messianic ideal of peace, the religious and spiritual notion of peace, the one that all of us hold in our hearts, is that there will be a different understanding perhaps of the cost of battle and war, that ultimately human beings in that region around the world will grow wiser or even just more fatigued of seeing death and destruction, of realizing the cost of this conflict and so many in our world. Maybe we'll come to wisdom. Maybe we'll come to clarity. Maybe ultimately we'll come to goodness. Maybe ultimately Palestinians will live in peace beside Israelis who wish, as they do, good people to live in peace next to good people.